Pytest Framework. What is a Pytest framework? So it is a built-in library used for unit testing. So what is meant by unit testing? Whenever a developer develops a code, he performs some testing. So that testing is called as unit testing. So generally, it is used for unit testing. So as a part of the framework, we'll be discussing this Pytest. So in Pytest, we can have certain features which will be used during automation of any web application. If we are automating any web application using Selenium with Python, in Python, since it is having unit test framework, nothing but Pytest, we'll be using this. In Java, you are having JUnit like Pytest or TestNG. So whenever we are dealing with Selenium with Java, we'll be learning that TestNG or JUnit. But Selenium with Python, since we are dealing with Python, we'll be learning this Pytest. Then, what are the features of this unit testing framework, Pytest? There are a lot of features like fixtures. We can do parallel testing. If we are having some 100 test cases, instead of executing one by one, we can execute side by side simultaneously. If one test case is executing at the same time, we can execute other test cases as well to reduce the time of execution of overall test suite. Similarly, if you don't want all the test cases, you want only some test cases to be executed, you can use skipping test feature in Pytest. We will see all of this one by one. Grouping test. You can group multiple test cases as a single test and you can execute them. Similarly, batch testing, parameterization, reports. We'll be discussing all these one by one. And in order to work with Pytest, definitely we need to have Pytest package in our local. So what you do, you install this Pytest package in project interpreter. Go to PyCharm, go to file, go to settings, go to project interpreter in the project. So click on plus, search for Pytest. So this is what it looks like. And the current version is 8.1.1. So click on install package. Yeah, it is installed. Close and click on OK. So if you want to work with any library or any package, you need to go to project interpreter and you need to install that library here. Also, you can also install by using pip in the command prompt. So you can also use, if you see pip list, see what are all the libraries which I have already installed, it will show here. If you see, these are the libraries which I have installed in the project interpreter, in the PyCharm. Even though installed there, they will be installed in this particular location. In the same way, this location is already configured in the environmental variable. So from the command prompt, anywhere you can execute. So these are all the things which I have already installed. If you can see, we have installed the Pytest right now. It has came. So you can install by using project interpreter, by using this command prompt also. Very important. You can install any library in 2 days. Click on OK. And before going to work with Pytest package, let me tell you the project structure. How every project, when you are building from scratch, how it will looks like. Yes, always a project. If you see here, you can think of this is a project. Python practice is a project. We'll be having directories, day 1, day 2, day 3. Likewise, instead of directories, you'll be having packages. If you want to create package, right click, as like directory, new. Instead of directory, you can create Python package. So what is the difference between directory and a package? We have already discussed. So package is a collection of libraries. Only Python libraries, nothing but modules. Again, those modules consist of group of functions, which we have already discussed. In directory, along with modules, we can also place log files, audio files, image files, etc. This is what the difference. So most of the times when you are creating a project with the help of any framework, you will create package, means you will only specify modules there, nothing but .py files, only Python files. You will not keep anything inside a package. This we have already discussed. So we have a project. Inside the project, you will have test suite. When I say test suite, it is nothing but group of test cases. Suppose there is a login functionality. So for the login functionality, I can have 4 test cases. I can group those 4 test cases under login suite. Similarly, search functionality. So you can click on that search button without entering any search string, with a search string, invalid search string. Likewise, there are a lot of scenarios where you can test a single functionality. So test cases related to single functionality are grouped together. So that grouping is called as a suite, and you can give appropriate name. Instead of test, you can give login suite, searching suite, logout suite, like that. Always a suite is a package or a directory. Likewise, inside the project, you will have a directory. Instead of directory, you can have a package as well. And inside test suite, you will have group of test cases, nothing but .py files. If you see here, if you think this is a directory, yes, it is a directory or a package. Inside this package, you will be having .py files. So you can think of these as test cases. Modules, nothing but .py files. And every test case up to now which we have seen will be having test steps. So these test steps are specified in methods. When I say methods, functions defined in a class. So since you are referring to test steps, you are calling them as test methods. Very easy. Another important point, naming conventions. You need to be very specific when you are defining a project, a test suite, test cases, test steps. You should follow some naming conventions. Then what are the different type of naming conventions you need to follow? Always module names should start with test underscore, because when you specify instead of before the name underscore and test, that Pytest library by itself by default will consider that as a module. Up to now, you have seen handling Excel files .py. .py files are called as modules. So if you are organizing this with respect to framework like Pytest, you need to specify test underscore handling Excel files.py, test underscore writing data.py, or another way is handling Excel files underscore test. So if the Pytest should consider that as a module, then definitely you need to start that with test underscore or ending with underscore test. You can specify anything, like if you can see test underscore login, you can just write login.py, but it will not recognize as a module with respect to Pytest framework. So what you need to do, you need to specify test underscore login or login underscore test. Starts with test underscore, ends with underscore test dot py. And class names should start with capital T E S T, test, like test class. Similarly, when I say a method, a function defined in a class is called as a method. So I'm referring to testing, so that is the reason test method. So always a test method should starts with test, small t, capital T. Should not confuse. This is for the naming convention you need to follow. Very important. Should not forget. Then let me create one so that you can understand. Go to PyCharm, create a folder of, or you can create a Python package instead of a folder. What you can do, create a Python package. When you create a package, you will have dot underscore underscore init underscore underscore. I mean, constructor will be created in the package. So let me create a Python package. So let me give the name as day 35 Pytest 1. This is the first class regarding to Pytest framework. I am just giving this particular name. If you can see, I have just created a package, and inside the package we will be having constructor. Constructor always starts with underscore underscore init underscore underscore. This is what the naming convention of the constructor. It is automatically created at the time of creation of a package, but when you create a directory, it is not created by default. Let me create a module with respect to Pytest. So when I say a module, it is nothing but a Python file only. But it should start with test underscore, or it should end with underscore test. This is what the first naming convention. So what I am doing, test underscore 1. Instead of 1, you can give any name, but it should start with test underscore. When you click on enter, it will create test underscore 1.py module. And if you want to create test method, definitely with the help of Pytest, you need to import that Pytest, import Pytest. So another important point, when creating classes, always the class name should start with capital T E S T test, and you can give any name like this. Let me give the name class test class. So test class is a class. So inside this class, I will be having methods. So always a method should start with small test, small t est test method. If you can see, always a method is nothing but a function which is defined inside a class. So it should also start with def keyword. So test method 1. You can specify like this. If you see here, when I defined test, automatically a green symbol has been highlighted. So it is automatically highlighted with the help of this Pytest. If I don't include this Pytest, it will not consider that. It will not consider these as a test classes and test methods. So you need to enable this. So when you specify the naming convention like this, they will be automatically highlighted. So let me remove this. If you see, if you didn't follow this particular convention, automatically the green symbols have been gone. So instead of running it in the PyCharm or right clicking and running, you can run it from here. We'll see in a while. So this is the test method 1. So inside this, I'm just using some random statement. Print of this is test method 1. Similarly, what I'm doing, I am creating another method of method 2, test method 2. I'm just following the conventions. So this is method 2. If you can see here, I can run individual method. I can run all the methods in this particular class like this. We will see not only these two ways, there is another way. So we will see right now. And another important point, when you define a function inside a class, it is a method. Yes, agreed. Always a method should have self keyword, which is referring to that particular class. This method refers to that particular class. If you fail to mention, definitely it will fail. It will not consider that as a method. Then what are the ways? We have seen how to create a module, how to create a class, how to create a test method, then how you can execute that test method. ways to execute test method, how you can execute. So to execute the test case, first thing you need to do is to enable this green button. Go to File, Settings, Tools. You can see it here, Python integrated tools in the tools. So by default, you need to have this Pytest. So it is in the auto detect state. So that is the reason when you install the Pytest, it is automatically detected. That for testing, you need to use this. You need to specify. Instead of auto detect, you can specify Pytest here. If I don't specify Pytest, if I click on no sets, apply, click on OK, if you can see, these will be not executed when you click on run here. So what you can do, go to File, Settings, Tools, nothing but integrated tools. You need to select Pytest, or you can just specify that auto detect. Whenever you detect any testing framework, since Pytest is the testing framework, it is automatically detected, so it has enabled these green buttons. You can do click on OK, click on apply. What is the another way? Click on the green arrow next to the test function or the class. So this is the green arrow, or I can say button. When I click on this, I can run the test method, this particular test method. When I run this particular green button against this particular test method, it will run this test method. But if I want to run all the test methods, I can run the green button against this class. This is what it is saying. Then how you can execute it in terminal? You need to use this particular command, pytest -v -v means verbose, -s means it should be the syntax for this particular pytest for executing any test method or a class. If you want to execute it in terminal, we will see all the ways. Very important. If you can see, I'm just executing a test method too. Click on this particular button, it enables these three options. You can click on run Python test. If you can see, this is what it looks like. This is method 2. In that test1.py, this is a module. You will have test class. Yes, test class is the class name. Test method 2, I have just executed this by using green button. Yes, it has been passed, and the statements inside this test method has been printed, and the percentage of execution, it also printed. This is what the results look like, which are different from normal execution. And how much time it is passed? 0.02 seconds. It will display the time as well. And so you can see test results passed. And let me execute test method 1, run Python test. If you can see, in the test1 module, test class, test1 method is executed. This is test1 method. Yes, it is executed in 0.01 seconds. Similarly, I want to execute all the test methods. Click on this green button against this class. You can see test method 1, test method 2 has been executed. These particular test methods statements has been executed inside this particular test method 1 and test method 2. So if you can see, if there are two test methods, I can think of this as 100%. If the first test method is executed, I can say it is 50% executed. If all the test methods are executed, I can say 100% is executed. In this way, when you define a test method inside a class, you can execute. This is one way. Then what is the another way? So go to terminal. You need to use this particular command pytest -s -v, and you need to specify that package and the directory as well as the module as well. How you can execute that? If you can see, you need to use this particular command. Go to terminal. You need to specify pytest -s -v, and you need to specify that package. In which package this particular class and methods are available. So if you can see, day 35 pytest1. So this is the package. Inside the package, I'm having a module. So what you need to do? You need to specify that module as well. Test underscore 1 dot py. You need to specify that full name as well. And inside this module, you are having class. And inside classes, you are having test methods. So what you can do inside this particular module, you can specify the class name. So test class. And inside the class, if you want to execute any specific method, you can just specify that method test method 1. So this is the string which you want to execute it in the terminal. Very important. So similarly, if I want to execute for method 2, I can just specify that method here. Instead of test method 1, you can specify method 2. Similarly, if I want to execute all the test methods, instead of specifying each and every test method, you can just specify only the class. If you only specify the class, it will only execute all the methods instead of a specific method. All the methods in this particular class. We will see right now. So I'm just executing this test method 1. If you can see, it is passed. And it is the statement which it is printed in the console. This is test method 1. Similarly, go here and press left button or right button, up arrow or down arrow. Right arrow, left arrow, up arrow, down arrow. So I'm just pressing up arrow. If you can see, instead of test method 1, I'm just pressing or executing test method 2. Yes, it is also executed. Test method 2. Yes, I don't want to execute a specific method. Instead, I want to execute all the methods inside this particular class. How you can execute? You can just specify, instead of a specific method, you can just specify the total class. Click on enter. If you can see, test method 1 and test method 2 both are executed. This is test method 1. This is test method 2. In this way, you can execute any methods or methods inside a class by using the green button or from the terminal. Two ways you can execute. Then, what are the different features which we have seen right now? A Pytest will be having fixtures. It is one of the feature of Pytest. We will be discussing that Pytest fixture, I can say. If you can see, what are Pytest fixtures and the yield keyword which we'll be using as a part of this Pytest features, we will see one by one. What are fixtures? When I say fixtures, these are functions which will run before each test method. If you see here, this is a test method, method 1 and method 2. Before running this test method, if you want to run anything, then you can use fixtures. It will be a little bit confusing. Don't worry, you will understand. If you apply fixtures to any method, those will be executed whenever that test method is executing. At the very beginning, before the execution of that particular test method, these fixture functions are executed. Before execution of test method. After execution of test method, if you want something to be executed, some statements to be executed, then you can specify those keywords with the help of yield keyword. So in real time, fixtures are used to feed data to the test cases. So like before executing any test cases, you need to connect it to database. And you need to pass the URLs. You need to fetch the URLs. And you need to get the input data. So these are specified in fixture functions. Very important interview question. What are the fixtures? Why are they used for? Fixture are the functions which will run before each test method. And if I want certain statements to be executed after the execution of test methods, I'll specify those statements with the help of yield keyword. Then what are the general type of things which we will specify in fixtures? Database connections, URLs to test, and some sort of input data, nothing, as well as opening browser. These are some common things which we'll specify in the fixtures. And after completion of the execution of a test method, definitely I need to close the browser. So you will specify those actions in the yield keyword, like closing browser, closing the application are specified after the yield keyword. So if you want to execute that fixture function, you need to pass that fixture function as an argument to the test method. Very important. If you want to execute something before the execution of a test case, you will define those functions or the statements in the fixtures, nothing but the functions. Fixtures are also functions. So if you want those statements to be executed before the execution of a test method, you need to pass that fixture function as an argument to this particular test method. Very important. How you can specify and how you can pass the fixture function. If you can see, go to PyCharm, comment this. What you can do, let me define a class of test class, and inside this test class I'm defining two methods, some random methods, just for example test underscore login. This is method one, and every method should have self keyword. And if you can see inside this, I'm just printing print of this is login test. This is some random statement I'm just printing. You need to be very careful whenever you are using the statements. Similarly, there is another method, like for defining another functionality. Define, I can say like set functionality test underscore set, and you can specify self instead this. You can use the print statement, print of this is set test. If you can see, when I execute this particular test method, it will be executed. When I execute this particular test method, it will be executed. That particular test method only executed. If you can see, before and after the execution of this test method, no statements have been executed. But if I want to do login or if I want to do some search, definitely I need to open the browser. After performing these actions, I need to close the browser. So opening and closing browsers, I will specify those statements in fixtures along with yield keyword, that what we have discussed. Before test method, I'll specify those in fixtures. If I want to execute something after the execution of certain statements, after the execution of test cases, if I want to execute some test cases, some statements, I will specify with the help of yield keyword how you can specify. If you can see, I'm just specifying a fixture. Always for the fixture, you should specify @pytest dot. You need to import that Pytest. Very important. Fixture. Very important. Then you need to define a method. Define, suppose I can say setup. This is the method, and inside this method I'm just having some random statement, print of opening browser. This is some random statement. You can think of like a real scenario. You are just opening the browser to perform this login and search operation. Without opening, you cannot perform this. So what I am doing, yes, for all the test method, for all the test cases, definitely you need to open the browser at the end of the day. So what you can do, you are just specifying that browser opening methods like driver dot get. Those are all things. Instead of that, I'm just using this particular single statement just for your understanding. In the setup method, I have given this my naming convention. That's it. So what you have done, you have just specified this particular setup method is a fixture. You have just defined @pytest.fixture. So upon any method, if you define @pytest.fixture, then that particular method is treated as a fixture. Very important. Then I want to open the browser before the execution of any test method. What you can do, you can just pass this particular fixture. That the fixture here it is setup method, because above this method only I have defined this @pytest.fixture. When I define like this particular method is nothing but a fixture method. So I want to use this fixture method, what I can do, I can just pass this method name as an argument to the method which I want to execute. If you can see, if I execute, it will only execute test. This is login test. This particular method is executed. If I execute this run Pytest, this is search test. Only this particular method is executed. So before logging in, before searching, definitely I want to open the browser. What I can do, wherever the fixture I have defined, that particular method, I can pass that as an argument to the method which I want to execute. If I execute this right now, definitely two statements has been executed. One is opening browser and the other is logging into the web application, login test. But if you can see test method 2, nothing but test search. Only this is search test is executed. But when I specify that fixture as a parameter or the argument to the method which I am executing, if you can see here, opening browser, first, what are the statements in the fixture has been executed, and thereafter, what are the statements in the method, they are executed after the fixtures. So if you want to execute that fixture function, you need to pass that as an argument to the test method, which we have seen right now. So this is what, before the execution of a test method, fixture is executed. But my requirement is, after the execution of these test cases or the test methods, I need to close the browser as well. What you can do, you can specify those statements after the yield keyword. So print off, I can say like print off closing browser. So after performing all this logging in and search, definitely we'll close the browser. Closing browser. You need to specify this. So instead of all the things which we want to do at the time of automation, instead of that, what I'm doing, I'm just closing the browser with a single statement. You can understand. This is some random example for your understanding I have taken. So after the execution of every test method, definitely what are the statements which you specify after the yield keyword, those will be executed. Very important. If you can see, if I execute this particular test method, test login, before the execution of the statements in the test method, opening browser is executed. And after the execution of the statements in the test method, certain statements have been executed. Before execution of the test method, after execution of the test method. Test login is a test method. Test search is also a test method. Very important. Fixtures are the functions which will run before each test method. After execution of the test method, if you want to execute certain statements, you will specify those certain statements after yield keyword. That what we have seen here. So fixtures and yield keywords are called as setup and tear down methods. Very important point. Setup and tear down methods. So instead of asking you directly what is the fixture one, what is the use of the yield keywords, they will ask you directly what is a setup and tear down method. So setup means before the execution of the test method, you will execute certain statements. So those are nothing but fixtures. And after the execution of certain test methods, you will execute some certain statements. So those are specified after yield keyword. You should not forget that. That's it. Tear down. Setup, tear down. You should not forget this. Very important. This is how you will use the fixtures and the statements after yield keyword. But in general, you will not define this particular fixture in the single module. What you will do, for better code maintenance, you will specify the fixtures in conf test file. Very important. For better code maintenance, we'll specify configurations along with fixtures in the conftest.py file. And we can specify that in the test methods. So when you specify conftest.py, definitely automatically Python interpreter along with Pytest framework will automatically consider that yes, some configurations and fixtures have been used. If you can see here, if you want to import Any module, definitely you need to use import statement. But when you specify confidence.py, automatically it is imported to a modules, each and every module in this particular package. I'm right clicking, create a Python file, confidence.py. What I'm doing, I'm just specifying a fixture here. So just specifying the fixture in the confidence.py file. So you need to import that Pytest. Import Pytest. You need to import. You need, if you want to define that as a fixture, if you want to use the features of the Pytest. So if you see what I am done, I have just specified the fixtures along with yield keyword, setup and teardown methods in the confidence.py. When I specify like this inside the confidence.py, automatically the Python interpreter will import that confidence.py for all the modules. This is test one, is the module one. Similarly, you'll be having test underscore login.py, it is module 2. You can use that particular fixtures which you have defined in the confidence.py. You can just call that particular fixture name, or you can pass that as a parameter to every test method. If you can see here, if I execute, you need to import these fixtures as well. Self not found. Definitely you need to remove this self. You don't need to use the self because it is not defined inside a class. If you can see, setup variable, if I didn't specify like this, suppose if you can see, it will raise an error, missing white space parameter, like this particular setup is not defined. But if I define in the conf test file, it is automatically imported. So if it is importing directly, you can use the setup method. You can pass the setup method as an argument to each and every test method. So that is the reason. After the execution of a test method steps, some steps has been executed. After the execution, some steps has been executed. This is login test and this is test. So this is inside test1.py module. But if you can take, let me create another Python module of test underscore login. This is another module. What I'm doing, I'm just defining some custom methods. Like if you can say, this is a test login, logging into email, logging into Facebook, logging into Twitter. These are the test methods. So what I'm doing, I'm just passing the test method with setup argument. Nothing but this particular setup argument is nothing but a fixture which I specified in the confidence.py. So automatically Python will consider that as a fixture. It will try to import directly. If you can execute all the methods in this particular class, all the methods will be executed. But if you can see, first method is executed. At the time of executing the second test method, if you can see, after the execution of test method, some statements need to be executed, like closing browser. Yes, it is executed, but you have raised assertion error. Assertion means you will check whether they are equal or not. So what I'm doing, this is some random assertion which I have taken. Assert means it will check true is equal to false or not. It is not equal, they are not equal. So it has raised assertion error instead of this false. If you specify true here, it will not raise any error. So inside the test methods, you will do some assertions. So instead of true, what you can do, you can just fetch the current title of the particular web page and you can check, you can match that expected title is equal to actual title or not. If you are really logging into any application, you can assert like this directly by using assert keyword. If you can see here, there is no error because both are equal. So instead of true, what I'm doing, I'm just specifying false here. It will raise an assertion error. But the main point which we need to take here is, before the execution of every test method, some statements is executed. After the execution of every test method, some statements have been executed. So all those functions which you want to execute before any test case or test method, you need to specify them in confidence.py. Fixtures are specified in confidence file. Very important interview question. You should not forget. There may be confusion between markers, which we will be discussing in the coming classes. You should not forget, always a fixtures is specified in confidence.py file. Very important for better code maintenance. Let me note some important points so you will not forget anymore. By default, all test methods will be passed. If you did not specify assert conditions here, by default, if you execute, all the test methods will be passed. But assertions are required. Suppose when you are logging into any application, you need to check whether the title is matching or not. So what you will do, you will just specify those conditions in the assert keyword along with the assert keyword. So if they are not logging in, expected and actual titles will not match. Definitely that particular method will fail. We'll get to know that yes, it has not logged into a particular page, maybe some issue or some service failure or not. So if you put assertions, definitely assertions means I can say a valid point, validation point. You'll check, right? Checking points. Pytest automatically discovers and loads conftest.py file. Very important. This is what we have discussed. Automatically discovers and loads to gather configuration and fixtures if created in the same directory where modules are created. If you see, day35-pytest1 is a package, nothing but I can say it is also a directory. Inside this directory, I am having test1.py, test_login.py are the two modules. I have defined the conftest file inside this particular package only, nothing but you can think of directory where modules are defined. But if I define this conftest.py in another day34 module, directory, sorry, not module, directory, then this particular setup method is not available for the modules in day35. That's what it is trying to say. If it is created in the same directory where modules are created, it will be automatically discovered and loaded. But if it is created outside of the directory, Pytest will not recognize. You need to create inside a directory where modules are defined. So when I say a fixture, it is nothing but setup method, test setup. When I say yield keyword, it is nothing but tear down method. Definitely you will have these two asks by the interviewer. In this way, you can use Pytest fixtures.